You are listening to the John Petro Show on 99.9 FM and 1380 AM. News Talk WRNI. Good afternoon. This is Giovanni Feroce, sitting in for John DePietro this afternoon. Hope he enjoys the rest of the day with his family. Everyone needs a vacation, especially people who work so hard. So thank you for having me today. I appreciate those who've been listening and those calling in my guest, of which the next one is really, what I consider not only a great guy, but he's, I think, understanding where some more of that gap lies when it comes to the information flow in Rhode Island with respect to getting information to people on all different topics, but in this political year, giving us his views on why he went ahead and launched Rhode-IslandRelevant.com. And so today I have Russell Moore joining me, who's the writer and the publisher of his website, Rhode-IslandRelevant.com. Russ, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Gio. I'm happy to call in and speak with you today.
Thank you. If you could you give the audience a little bit of your background and then, why you put Rhode Island Relevant together?
Sure. So, Rhode Island guy, grew up in Pawtucket. I went to school in Pawtucket, parochial school. I went to St. Raphael Academy. Then I went to Providence College, and when I graduated from Providence College, that summer I was just kind of doing that which I always did, which was kind of, lounging around the house and going to the beach. And my parents were like, you got to get a job, right? The party's over. So I just my mother said, you've always been interested in news and politics, and, you're a pretty decent writer. Why don't you get involved in journalism? So that was probably some of the worst advice I had ever gotten in my life. So
maybe for you, but I think great advice for the rest of Rhode Island.
Thank you. I half joke, and so I kind of went on this website back then. It was called Journalism Jobs, and I landed at a small newspaper in Richmond, Rhode Island that was called the Charahoe Times, and I worked there for about a year, and then I moved on to the Bristol Phoenix, which is obviously in Bristol. Then I found, about a year after that, I found myself at the Warwick Beacon and Cranston Herald. I worked there for about 4 years. And then after that, I took about a year out of journalism. I worked in business for about 2 years, and then I started writing again back in 2013 for GoLocalProv.com. So I did the hot or not list for a long time, and I wrote a weekly column, and I'd write some news stories here or there. But starting late last year, I decided that I wanted to have my own platform. My whole career I had been writing for editors and different publishers, and, I was sick and tired of having to kind of run it up the chain and ask somebody, can we write this? Is this news? Is that news? And tired of getting assignments, and I wanted the freedom to kind of go out and write about what I thought was interesting or what was important. So that's why I launched my own website, which is www.rirelevant.com. And I've gotten a lot of help from a lot of the friends and a lot of the people that I've met in my journeys across Rhode Island over the years. I've got people like former state representative Joanne Giannini being a great help to me, writing columns, and kind of our version of the hot or not list, which is called What's In, What's Out.
She just agreed to join me for the last half hour later, so I look forward to having her on.
Oh, I can't wait to hear. Oh, she's great. And, I've got some other former, another Pawtucket guy, Matt Fechtow, helps me out. He writes for me here and there. And some other people and other friends that I've met along the way have been great. A local artist by the name of Jimmy Caputo writes comics. Sometimes he writes articles for me. So it's been a lot of fun. I've met more people, and I've had a lot of fun doing it, and it's quite an adventure. So I'm having a great time, and it's great to cover the political scene and also the business and lifestyle scene in Rhode Island.
Yes. No, you definitely cover all of them, and I think you also come at it from, as you mentioned, experience. And when one hears of, where you learned your experience and received your experience, and what I loved hearing there was just, listen, we're a small state, and you seem to have been all over it.
Yeah, I've been to every corner. I've really been to every corner, from Providence to South County and Richmond to Warwick, which is the West Bay, and then over to the East Bay in Bristol. That's a good. Yeah, I've never really thought of that. Other than Newport, where you live, I've been just about everywhere.
I was going to say,
I love Newport, by the way. I go there at least, once every
there you
couple,
go.
2-3 weeks.
But you mustn't have suffered from Rhode Islanditis,
No. That's
Story.
that's one of the most frustrating things about Rhode Island, in my opinion, is the fact that someone thinks going from Newport to Providence is a long trip. I'll never understand that, even though I'm from here.
I
So.
always tell this story when, I don't know if you know this, my brother started Feroce Optical, and
Sure.
at the time it was North Kingstown. Now it's in East Greenwich. And I joined him a few years later, and we were working. And back in the early 90s, these older group of guys, I had said to him, why are you buying your glasses, over here? Why don't you come see us down at Feroce Size? And one day the door swings open. These old Italian guys come in. They're like, what the hell? I said, what? We got to get a hotel. I'm like, what are you talking about? Just because they drove down to North Kingstown, they're like, basically, kid, I would have never come here if I knew it was this far. It was one of the funniest. To this day, I visualize it. But let me ask you. So I want to get into a couple of things that I've noticed that are trending a little bit, and ask you of their impact, if any, on this political year. So some of the things, as a candidate myself and being the recipient of some not so nice comments once in a while from people. The Twitter sphere, let's call it. When you click on some of the comments, usually if I see something very nasty, I right away it makes me want to click on who it is and see who they are, right?
Sure,
And
of course.
What's driving this comment?
Right.
And I have to tell you, without almost at 100% now, it is an account that has 0 followers or 1 follower. So it's something that is either a bot or they're making it up just to launch the comment. And so I don't think it affects anything. I try and, kind of just let it be the raindrop that goes off my Parker. But, regardless, I do know some people will react to something, not taking that extra step of seeing who it is, and maybe change their whole view on something,
Right,
which is
right.
kind of scary. But where do you see trolls having a role in politics these days?
It seems like social media and the internet has given trolls quite a platform to try to go out there and be negative, and to try to bring people down, and to try to hurt people's feelings. But I don't think most people are affected by that negativity. I think most people see through it. I think a troll is fairly simple, fairly easy to catch coming down the road a mile away. So I don't think most people give it too much stock. I think that their impact is vastly exaggerated. I don't think they have much of an impact whatsoever. I think at the end of the day, most people don't take that too much into account.
I tend to agree with you, but then there are also those that are, real people and legitimate, holders of, in some cases, elected office. In many cases, they work for, a state government agency or a city or town. And I look at them, and I'm thinking to myself, I've been all about a positive campaign. Some people will criticize me for that, for only being positive. But the reality is, sometimes people on my own side, have legitimate arguments or want to, call somebody out on something. And even then, like, my natural reaction is to reach out and say, why did you do that? Where does it get me? It doesn't get me anywhere. Why would you do that? Even though I know why they're doing it, and I should be very appreciative of why they're doing it, I still call them out on it. But why is it then that elected officials or other major candidates would allow someone on their behalf to be so nasty or to make comments that really lessen who they are as individuals? Like, I say to myself, what would my sons or daughters think of me writing what I just wrote?
Yeah.
And I'm not, and I have to put always one little qualifier on myself, other than the produced fixer for a show in which I used profanity. That was for a production item.
It's like acting,
what
right?
would my kids think about, me just attacking somebody and calling them
Gio, that's a great question you raise, and unfortunately, I don't think that you're gonna like the answer. I don't like the answer, but one of the facts of life is that we shouldn't dismiss truths just because we don't like them. I think the reason that people in politics has gotten to be negative is because it works. At the end of the day, it's just a sad truth that negative campaigning works, and if it didn't, people wouldn't do it. I think that we as a society need to take a step back and ask ourselves, what kind of society do we want to be when we react to negativity and we react to vitriol? But I do think at this point in time, in this day and age, a negative campaign does work. I saw that myself. One of the most shocking negative, nasty campaigns I've ever seen was in 2010 when, Governor Chafee was just extremely negative, tearing down family members of his opponents and on both sides of the aisle. And I said, my God, this guy's certainly going to sink himself. And it worked. He won the election. Now, granted, it was a 4-person race, so I think that had an effect. But I think there are other countless examples where negativity has helped people get elected.
To go over 50%, but that's another topic.
Oh God, that we need a runoff in this state, like
Absolutely.
like oxygen. Let's put it that way.
That said, so I kind of hit on that a little bit earlier today. At what point does it, do voters vote better? I again earlier this year, and I'm not going to lie, want to instigate a little bit. So, I posted a picture and I'm like, who's doing who a favor, da, da, da. And the reality is, at what point do we want better candidates and candidates that are going to have messages that show, a complete picture of Rhode Island, that execute a vision, that do all sorts of things, that have the ability to control themselves and run positive messages and all of that stuff. And the voters reward that. Will it ever happen? And if they don't, then don't voters deserve the state they have? Because they themselves are terrible at what they do, which is voters don't know how to vote?
At the end of the day, unfortunately, we get the government we deserve, and the government is a reflection of the people. So if the people are apathetic and they don't care how their local town council is spending their money, and they're too lazy to pick up a copy of the Valley Breeze or the Bristol Phoenix or a paper like that and find out what's going on, or they're too disengaged to turn on Ustream and watch the Warwick City Council or wherever they're from, they're going to get bad government. The politicians, if you don't make your voice heard, they're not going to pay attention to you. That's how this system works. And I've been saying this for years. The more people are more interested in American Idol, and I'm a huge sports fan, but when they care more about what the Patriots are doing or what the Red Sox are doing instead of what the state government is doing, you're not going to get good government. You have to. The voters
who should be having that conversation then? But who should be having the conversation? You see, because if I have it, I have a completely different mindset, I think, than most people out there. Most are willing to do anything to win the office, right?
Sure.
They pander. They say anything they want to say. They use words like, it's a privilege if you elect me. Like, no. You're lucky if you elect me. Like, that's my message. It's two different messages. I tell people all the time, if I come in second, I won. If I come in first, you won. There's a different message there.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
That's true of any good qualified person at whatever their job they're doing, right? We don't go after free agents in football who suck. We go after the best players on the planet who are entertaining 5, 6, 7 offers from different teams.
Absolutely.
We have agents that represent them that say, my guy's the best guy on the planet, and this is why you should, engage him and pay him all this money. Why isn't that what and how we elect people? Why are we gotten it to the point where the candidates are begging the public to get elected? For what? Why
it's a great question. And when you say who should be having that conversation, it's very hard for a politician to have that conversation because at the end of the day, it still is treated like a popularity contest. So people don't want to feel like you're talking down to them. So who should be having that conversation, you ask? I think it's up to the media. I think the media has done a lousy job at rousing public interest or engaging the public. I think the greater media. And I think that's where the conversation needs to happen.
Don't see it? Is it because they can't But I'm just saying, and I want to jump on this because I think you're right going in that approach. In other words, are they just not framing the question right, or in other words, when they're asking people X, Y, Z, whatever it is, right? Are they just not coming at it from the right angle? Because I just sit there and I'm like I'm just blown away. I sit there and I say, well, why is this person who has no job, who has no this, no that, begging and getting elected to be a state rep, or want to run for whatever, and I'll just say even lieutenant governor, whatever. Like, how is it possible? These guys wouldn't qualify for a second interview at Metropolitan Insurance, okay? And here we are.
So true. I'm
putting
laughing.
them
I'm laughing.
in the assembly or putting them in the lieutenant governor's chair.
I see some of these people on city councils. I'm saying, I wouldn't hire this guy to be my janitor. No offense to janitor. I wouldn't hire this guy to be dog catcher. And we're giving this person dominion over a $300 million budget, and this is a person that no one would take seriously.
But how is it that we've gotten there? Like, so in the questions.
I will say this, and you're asking tough questions, but I will say this about people, and I've seen this, I've observed this. Okay, Rhode Islanders suffer from chronic low self-esteem. Okay, they have a very poor self-image, the state as a whole and the individual. So I have noticed that people would rather vote for a politician who is corrupt, who that they know, when they see them at the coffee shop. Oh, hey, John, how's it going, buddy? Oh, you're looking great. That gives them affirmation. So they will vote for that guy, even though he's doing things that are not good for the city or good for the state. They will vote for him just because he made them feel good. Okay? He alleviated their self-esteem temporarily, their low self-esteem. He made them feel better. They will vote for that person just because they know them. We need to get rid of that low self-esteem. We need to demand more. We need to expect more. We need to be better.
What do you think about term limits? Does term limits not cleanse the place a little bit?
I am a staunch proponent of term limits. I believe that the system was not created with this idea of career politicians in mind. I think that term limits are definitely something we need. People say that if we had term limits, it would just empower the staff, the people that work for the government, because they'd be the ones with all the institutional memory. I can understand that to an extent, but at the same time, I know that term limits have worked well in the presidency. They've worked well for the state. Our elected leaders, we have term limits for them.
Work in the military, Russ. Listen. You can only serve for X period of time. You can only serve in your position for X period of time.
Okay, the state police have that. The state police, you can only serve for 25 years.
Exactly.
So I think
retiring pilots, but we're not retiring people in the Supreme Court of the United States.
And I'm on record. When I was at Go Local Prov, I had written that I really agreed with Representative Lombardi from Providence, who has put in every year a bill that would create reasonable term limits, but it never goes anywhere because the career politicians who run our state legislature don't want them because they want to serve for 25 years or 40 years, like, Senator Revens did in Warwick for 40 years, and they want to be there, and and the people who vote for them know the guy, so, we're never going to get term limits at the rate we're going.
One thing that I recognized, and I'll say I know 90% of it, I don't know all of it, but in Florida, they actually, when they elect the Speaker of the House, they elect like 2 or 3 of them at a time. And they only serve 1 year at a time each.
Okay, sure.
So imagine that, like you already know who you're electing for 2019, 2021. In other words, that's how they do it.
And then that person who's House Speaker,
they have to hurry up and do something.
All right, and then if Giovanni Feroce is House Speaker, he makes decisions that are best for all of Florida, not just decisions that are going to keep him in that position or cut deals that are going to work to keep him in that speaker position for the next 8 or 10 years like we do here. That's a better system. That's good government. So what we need is candidates who are going to focus on good government. That's what we need. We need good government bills in Rhode Island. Once we get a good government, we can do all these other things that we talk about that need to be done to make Rhode Island more affordable, more effective, improve our infrastructure. When we do these things and we rid ourselves of this inherent corruption, that's not only illegal corruption, but also the legal corruption that goes on. And I know that might sound like
bigger than illegal.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
These
Yep.
people are taking hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, in regular contractual meetings or in institutional direction that are given agencies or government deals. Or it's an
Well,
unimaginable.
just look at the governor. Look at Governor Raimondo. What did she raise? $6 million so far? Am I really supposed to believe that the people that are donating money to her are saying, Gina, here's I just bundled $50,000 for you. I raised it. I gave you 1,000. My son. Here's 50. Go take this 50K, but do what's best for Russ Moore down in Pawtucket. Do what's best for Giovanni Feroce living down in Newport. Do what's best for everybody. Don't do what's best for you, and don't do what's best for me and my cronies. Do what's best for everyone.
Voters
Are
keep
we
voting.
really so
They keep
stupid?
voting, Russ. I mean, at the end of the day, they keep voting.
Are we really that stupid
But-
in Rhode Island that we think that when someone raises that money, they're raising it with our best interests in mind? Are we really that bad? I guess maybe we are. That's the answer.
Well, I think that at the end of the day, it goes back to what I said earlier. I think the voters need to do a self-check, look in the mirror, and just be honest with yourself and just say, who am I? So there was a professor at the Wharton School of Business when I went through the advanced management program that I wrote down his 3 questions that I consider really the guidance of, my life the last 9 years or so. And that is, he said, ask yourself these 3 questions. Who am I as a person? What will I do with my life? And who will I do it with? And I think if voters started looking in the mirror and they understand that there's the answers to those questions are what's important, and stop voting for the moment, but vote for the future, for the whole thing, But I did want to add one other thing before I lose you here.
Sure.
So when it comes to media in general right now, what do you think the future of Rhode Island, in the next cycle, not this election cycle, because I see this as transformational, these midterms. The next presidential will be coming up in a few years.